Okay, good. Um, Imagine yourself sitting in my living room. I have invited you to take part in a webinar about neurolinguistic programming. You're sitting comfortably in your chair. I just lit the fire. You have something to drink, maybe a cup of tea, coffee, or a beer or wine. Sit comfortably and just allow yourself to be surprised and maybe something different about NLP. I can see a lot of you have already had experience with NLP, and some of you might be new to the field. When you write your questions in your chat, I'll try and answer them, but I don't think I'll be able to answer all of them, but I will certainly do my best. Okay, so a lot of you know NLP came from America. It was discovered in the 80s by three people, Richard Bandler, John Grinder, and Frank Pucelik, who were very interested in how three very famous therapists at that time did their work. The first of these therapists was Fritz Perls, father of Gestalt therapy. The second one was Milton H. Erickson, who founded clinical hypnosis. And Virginia Satir was a wonderful woman who worked with systemic family therapy and discovered family sculptures. What they were interested in was not the actual methods that they used, but how they used their body, how they used their language, how they used subliminal signals to influence their patients and their clients to change their life. And from this study, they created neuro-linguistic programming. Nowadays, NLP is used in almost every field that has anything to do with human beings, with feelings, with emotions. It's used in sport, in business, in therapy, in coaching, and in the arts. So it's a pretty wide field. I use mainly NLP in helping people to discover themselves for their own personal growth, but also with health. Let me start with a story about how I first discovered NLP. It wasn't very dramatic, but it really moved me, and this story still is with me even to this day. It was in the 70s. I was only 16, and Grinder and Bandler and Frank Pucelik were probably still in college. NLP had not been invented yet. I was working in a hospital as a male nurse, and I was 16 years old. I was working in pediatrics, and there was a young girl, I think she was 12 or 13. She was suffering from leukemia. And at that time, chemotherapy wasn't very advanced, so the doctors didn't give her much of a chance. They said that she would probably live for another week, then she would die. Well, one day I went into a room, and because I'm a little bit wild and impulsive, and I still am now, I wanted to do something different. So I went up to her and I picked her up in my arms and I carried her over to the window. I opened the curtains and opened the window, and luckily this hospital was situated in a park beside a lake, so it was a very beautiful view. And I said, look out at that. Look at the lake, look at the water, look at the sun reflecting on the water. And behind the mountains you can see the sun. And if you listen very carefully, you can hear the wind rustling through the trees. And if you look over to the right there, you can see the butterflies flying between the flowers. Smell the flowers, taste the breeze. First of all, she looked at me a little bit annoyed, and then all of a sudden she started crying. And she started screaming, went through a lot of pain at that time. And I just held her, and she just looked out at this sea, and just smelling and feeling and listening. It took about a half an hour, 3/4 of an hour. And then I laid her down and she went to sleep. 2 weeks later, she left the hospital in remission, cured. She had no cancer. And funny enough, I got a letter from this woman about 3 weeks ago. She now has 6 grandchildren and is doing fine. So I don't know whether directly I had anything to do with that, but what happened to me was I became very conscious about how the mind can influence illness, and how the 5 senses are very important in our lives. And years later, I came into contact with NLP and discovered that these 5 senses are part of the NLP model. We perceive our outside world through our senses, through seeing, through hearing, through smelling, through tasting, and through feeling. And we also express our inside world to our outside world through these five senses. The first sense, or what we call in NLP, is representational system. These are people where the visual sense is very important. These are often, but not always, artists or people who are very interested in pictures and images, graphic artists, illustrators, and everything else. These people look mainly up towards the pictures, or to the right or to the left. The body posture is also oriented upwards towards the heavens. When they talk, they speak in pictures. They use sentences such as, my picture tells me I have an inner image, or I see it differently. The next representational system that we have is the auditory. These are often musicians, but not always. They look either to the right or to the left, straight ahead, or they sometimes have this position of telephoning. Before I go on, can everybody hear me? I don't see any questions yet. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. They use such sentences as my inner voice, or I hear it differently, I don't like your tone, and things like this. Good. Okay, great. Good, thank you. The third sense is the sense, or the representation system, that everybody wants to have, and this is kinesthetic. Everybody wants to be kinesthetic. Everybody wants to be feeling. So these are people who use such sentences as my inner feeling tells me, or I have a gut feeling, or my intuition tells me. And touching is very important, feeling is very important. The next two representational systems are the gustatory and the olfactory. Olfactory is obvious, this is smelling. Also smelling is, for instance, an important sense for people who work with perfume or with wines. They use such sentences as, I don't like the smell of you, or this doesn't quite smell right for me. These are actually minor representational systems connected to the three major ones. The next one is gustatory representational systems. These are often cooks, people who cook, really like cooking, really like eating. They use such sentences as, well, I don't like the taste of this, etc. Are there any questions up till now? Do you understand what I'm talking about? Yes, that's right. There are different kinds of representation systems, combinations of, for example, somebody who represents, first of all, maybe with a visual representation system, and then they have an auditory as a secondary reaction to perceiving the world or expressing themselves. Yes, you are right. Yes, that's right. That's right. Generalization. It is also. This is no rule. This is really important. When I talk to you about NLP, this is not the truth. These are results of long studies, and of course, there's always an exception to the rule. So when I say can be a musician or can be a cook, it doesn't mean that everybody who cooks has a strong gustatory representation system. Kinesthetic, oh yeah, okay, kinesthetic, they're always people who meditate on their belly button. Maybe they're looking down. Even when they look down, it doesn't mean they're thinking negatively, but their body posture is oriented to the earth, to the floor. Okay? Good, okay, I'll keep going on. Well, what's that? How's that going to help you in your everyday life? Well, actually, one good idea, or one good reason for learning about representation systems is in relationships. When I work with relationships, quite often the only problem they have is a communication problem. But for instance, the man might be a visual representation representation system. That means when he talks, he's speaking about his inner images, his pictures, he's looking up. And his wife might be a kinesthetic, and she's talking about her feelings, her what she's feeling, and a gut feeling, and she's looking down. So they're not meeting each other. Man's up here and woman is down here. And they don't understand each other, and they have one misunderstanding after the other. So what my work is saying is getting these two people to become more flexible, to change and transform the way of speaking to each other by changing the kinesthetic, their representation system. That the man, the visual, goes more into kinesthetic level, and the woman, the kinesthetic level, goes more into the visual level, and they meet each other in the middle. And then something really magical happens. All of a sudden they realize they've been saying the same thing for the past 20 years and didn't realize it. They were just speaking on another level, using another representation system that the other person could not understand. Quite often you get in contact with people where you say, wow, he's really sympathetic. You've meet him for 2 or 3 minutes and you feel as if you've known him for 20 years. Then you most probably have the same representational system, and this is fantastic. For working with people, but also in communication, this is really good, because by being flexible and transforming onto the representation system of the people who you're working with or talking to, your level of communication becomes much more deeper, become more connected to each other, and you understand each other much more. So this is very interesting to think about this when you go outside tomorrow, to look, well, what kind of sentences am I doing? What's my body posture like? This person you meet in the bus or in the shop or in Aldi or whatever, what's he got? What has he for a system? And just play with it. Just play with it. And NLP should not be taken seriously. It should be fun. You should be enjoying it. One of the presuppositions of NLP, I'll just keep jumping right to the left or whatever, and if anybody has any questions, just write them down. The map is not the territory. This presupposition comes from Gregory Bateson. I'll come back to your question after. Okay, no, I'll go into that now. How do you communicate with different types? Can you tell me exactly what you mean? Oh, you understand already? No. Yeah, you're right. Well, what you do, first of all, when one person is visual, like with a woman and man, I'm sorry about giving the man the visual system and the woman kinesthetic. It could be the other way around, of course. The man is talking in pictures. He has images that he's projecting out through his language and through his body posture. And the woman is talking about her feelings, and she's expressing these feelings through her body and through her perception of this kinesthetic and haptic. So they're not meeting each other. So what happens then, if you teach the man to start talking also in a kinesthetic representation system, that means he starts saying, instead of saying, my picture or I have a vision, he says, well, I have a feeling. Or when I go inside, I have a certain feeling inside me that I can't really express. He brings his body posture also more down to the earth. At the same time, the woman who is kinesthetic starts talking in pictures. She changes her language patterns too by saying, yeah, well, I have an inner picture and my vision is that, and she's looking up. It might be a little bit difficult at first doing this, but after a while, they come into a resonance where they begin to understand each other much better. Is that okay, Angie? Do you understand? Yeah, right. Well, in NLP, it's a lot of practice, and one of the main things is just to be curious about it. Okay? The map is not the territory, a presupposition that comes from Gregory Bateson, who was, by the way, married to Margaret Mead, a very famous anthropologist. I don't know whether you know that. The map is not the territory, it's just exactly what I was telling you. The way you perceive your environment and people around you is completely different to how other people perceive that. That is not the truth, that's not the reality. You're seeing that through your own filter, through your own perceptions, through your own representational systems, and everybody else too. So this is really exciting because then, first of all, of course, everybody is different, but also it gives a sense of security as well to know, well, it's okay to be out there and have a different point of view about things. It's okay to be together with people with different points of view, because a map is not the territory. And what happens then is, because you start communicating with people to get to understand what's going around here, you start asking questions, you start communicating with people. And this is something that I think is really important today. When I go onto the train or go into a cafe or a restaurant, I see people sitting there with their telephone doing the SMSs, and they're sitting around, there's no eye contact, they're not speaking with each other. And even sometimes the same people on the table are speaking with each other with SMS or with emails instead of verbally. So the map is not the territory. It's an interesting thing to know, to feel safe about. If you don't feel safe or secure in any situation, then ask a question. Look somebody in the eye. Start communicating with them to get to know what's really going on. Any questions about the map is not the territory? Okay, that's good. Great. Then I'll keep going on. Another presupposition of NLP. Everybody is already perfect. You are perfect how you are. Still going to use the idea of NLP. Ask me that question again towards the end, Angie. Everybody is already perfect. At that moment in time, when you take your first breath at your birth, when you open your eyes, you are perfect. You're innocent. And you know all the answers to all the questions that you will ever have in your whole life. What happens then is that your people around you start proving to you that that's not true. Whether that's a doctor or the nurse who takes you away from your mother, or your parents later trying to get you to be a really good person and to educate you, or your teachers or your relationships or friends are trying to change you to prove to you that you're not perfect how you are. Okay, everybody is going to, yeah. And this is really great, because I mean, you know what it's like when you have problems, or you think, life's really shitty, your relationships are going out, you don't have enough money, and you start thinking, well, I'm not perfect how I am. There's something missing. There's something wrong with me. And take you to church. Well, I don't know exactly what you mean there. And to know you're perfect how you are. There's nothing wrong with you, and it's important for you to go back to this state of mind, this feeling to know you are okay how you are. All these words, all these statements, we register them in our mind, and we never forget them. These statements of your parents, you have to study to be really good, to be successful. Or you will never be any good. And all these belief systems or belief statements affect our later life. So this is another thing what we do in NLP. We learn to negate or to take away the power or the negative power or influence of these negative belief sentences or these negative belief systems. Visual kinesthetic. Your boss too. Okay, great. Where am I? Yeah, belief systems, right. And this is really important work, because all these sentences, we have this inner internal dialogue saying to us, you're not good enough, or you can't do that, or you're not strong enough, you don't have enough personal power. And through NLP, we can change our minds. And by changing our minds, we change the whole feelings that we have inside our body, and we change the way we react to ourselves and the way we react to people around us. Become much more stronger. Of course, personal growth is not something that you can do or change inside 5 minutes. Personal growth is something that you have to work on your whole life. Good news or bad news? Well, I have to earn my money some way. Everybody has all the resources. Yeah, everybody has all the resources that you need now. So there's no there's no way that you can ever say in your whole life, I don't have an answer to this problem. You always have an answer to this problem. You always have a resource or some kind of possibility to change something in your life and to achieve your goals, whether you believe it or not. By the way, another thing with NLP, the word not, your subconscious mind does not understand the word not. You know what it's like when you have children and you say to them, do not run so fast, you will fall over. Or what happens? The child falls over because she does not hear not. A better sentence would have been, take care where you walk, or walk slowly, or keep your eyes open. So this is interesting when you observe your normal conversation with people around you, with your friends, or with your boss, or with yourself. How many times do you use the word not? So instead of saying not, then use more positive words. When you formulate, when you speak, be more positive the way you speak and the words that you use. It's also another presupposition of NLP. Sometimes this would be misunderstood and everybody thinks, well, what does that mean? I'm always okay, everything's great and fantastic, and inside I feel shitty. This is exactly what happens sometimes is we try to influence ourselves with being positive all the time, and inside we do not feel positive. And with my work with NLP, I go the other way. I work with people from the inside out, that they feel more in contact with themselves, more stronger, more self-assurance, more courage. And when they feel that, then their reaction to the world, to the problems or to the challenges becomes much more positive and much more stronger. Any questions? Still learning, yeah, right. Good, okay, great. So let's do a little exercise before we go on. It's a very simple one. A lot of you already know it. Just take your hands and imagine your left hand, how do I get this? Or whatever. In your left hand, you have something you want to change. It's something that always comes up in your life, the same thing. It might have to do with relationships, might have to do with your work or with money. Imagine this problem or this thing you want to change, it's all in your left hand. And as you imagine that, imagine or feel what's happening to your hand. Does it feel heavy or lighter? Oh, that's a good, well, I can change that, Catherine, that's no problem. Think of something negatively anyway. Oh no, good contact, okay. Negative. Does it feel hard or soft? Is it cold or is it warm? Is it painful? This is something you want to change. It always comes up. Great, okay. Good. In your right hand, you have a situation where you really feel great. This happens almost every day in your life, hopefully, where you really feel powerful, strong, clear with yourself, in harmony with yourself. You're courageous, passionate. So you have two parts now. You have one part that you want to change, that's negative, and on the other side, you have something positive, a resource. Bring your two hands, these two parts, more together, near each other. Feel the difference in your right hand also, whether it's light, whether it's heavy, whether it's warm, cold. Bring your hands together very, very slowly, they almost touch. Allow your hands to touch and come together so these two parts melt into each other. It's positive and negative, a resource and something you want to change. That's okay. So what's here inside your hand now is something new. This is a resource or part of you that you have done. I don't know what it is, you don't know what it is, but it's something different to these two sides. It's a resource of something that will help you or support you in changing or helping you in your life in some kind of context. whatever you want to call it, more courage, more passion, more hope, more strength. And bring this part into your body. Some people I bring into your heart, just actually it's called follow your heart. So allow this part, this new part of yourself to flow into your heart and become a part of you. It's what in NLP we call an anchor, a resource anchor. This means that tomorrow when you go to work or whatever, or you're not feeling too good or whatever, if you put your hand on your heart, you will automatically create a feeling of resource. Automatically will be triggered that you will feel more clear with yourself and with the people around you. This is an exercise that should be done often. It's a matter of practicing to be perfect, but it's a very strong one as well. Did I tell that right? Did everybody understand that, or are there any questions? Maybe I was too fast. Good. Okay. Resource anchor, or in NLP we also call that moment of excellence. Moment of excellence and resource anchor. Everybody has one, has thousands of them. Positive and negative, yeah, okay. These are just words that I use because I'm trying to teach you something. Positive and negative are two poles, once again. And when I work with people, what I like to call it is the left side is something I want to change, a challenge, and the right side is a resource, something I already have. Because of course we're influencing people when we're using the word positive or negative. And we want to influence people to feel good, to feel stronger, to feel greater, to clearer with each other. And I think if we would do that, then we would have less trouble in this world and most probably less war as well. Another presupposition of NLP, you cannot not communicate. Sorry about using the not, but we're always communicating, even when we're silent, through our body, through small mimics, through a smile or whatever, or through our breath. We are always communicating. Good communication is based on self-responsibility, with emphasis on response. That means if you don't get the reaction that you want to get from people, the responsibility lies with you. And you have to change something about the way you speak with people to get what you want. So all communication is always self-responsibility. Questions? No, it's good for now. Angie, you have something in your mind? No? Okay. Another presupposition of NLP, one of the most important ones for me with my work with people, when I work with illness or with health. Behind every negative reaction that you have, behind every illness, sickness, or pain or symptom that you have, even an accident that you have, there is always a hidden positive intent, an inner message from your body, from your subconsciousness, from the part of you that wants to make you happy and that you always stay happy. Positive intent. And when I work with people, I work with them to find out what is this positive intent, what is the second gain, what can they learn from this illness or from this state of mind. Good example, for instance, is a manager who has some kind of stomach problems or high blood pressure or whatever, and all his body is trying to tell him is to take it easy, go on holidays, relax, let go of his stress. And this is one reason why when anybody's ever sick, I try to encourage them to work on finding out what these positive intents or these messages are, because that time when you suppress a symptom or pain through some kind of medication, then you're going away from the subconsciousness. And the subconsciousness is the center of your being. Like yoga, no idea. My daughter does yoga, and some of the things that I say she doesn't believe. So, but there probably are similarities to yoga too, or maybe to Buddhism, whatever. So where are we now? Yeah, subconsciousness. I call it the pool of wisdom. It comes from this book from Stephen King, Lizzie's Story. The pool of wisdom. You could also call it. I'll come back to accidents, Willie. Okay, where all the answers are to all your problems, your inner resources, your inner teacher, your intuition. It's all inside the pool of wisdom in your subconsciousness. And the way to get to the subconsciousness, or key to your subconsciousness, are through feelings. With showing feelings and emotions, the gate to the subconsciousness opens up and you fall into it. And this is really important to know that whenever you have some kind of feeling or emotion inside, just let it go. By letting it go, you're falling into the subconsciousness and you're creating a form of self-healing process that will support you in any process that you need to get healthy again or to become happy. Yes, Willie, behind accidents as well, there is always a positive intent. Well, I'm saying always, 99.99%. There are situations where I've experienced friends and clients' accidents where I could not find any positive intent behind it. It just happened, but this is very, very rarely. But sometimes with accidents, it's also a sign or a message to take it easy or to relax, or maybe take a few days off from work, or to let go of stress. It's okay, Willie? It's an answer to your question? Okay, good. Coming back to positive thoughts or expressing yourself positively. In NLP, we do a lot with goals, working with goals. And what we talk about is a well-formed outcome. A well-formed outcome is a goal or a statement of a goal that you have that is formulated positively. Or to change your lifestyle altogether. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right. A story. A friend of mine in Switzerland, many, many years ago, he had no money, and he needed $5,000, 5,000 francs, to do some kind of project that he had in his head. And he wrote down an affirmation. The affirmation is a sentence about a goal, and the affirmation said, I will get 5,000 francs inside the next 3 weeks. Okay, he wrote it down many times, so he could really go inside and believe it. After a few days, he went outside and walked across the main street in Bern. Switzerland, was looking where he was going. He went over by a car. He broke his leg. The person who ran over him had a very good insurance and paid for his hospital benefits and for the money that he should have got when he was working, and that came to exactly 5,000 francs. So this friend of mine got his 5,000 francs, but he suffered. What he didn't do was that his sentence or his affirmation was not formulated strongly or clearly enough. It would have been better if he would have wrote, I will receive 5,000 francs inside the next 3 weeks, doing work that I really love and enjoying it with lightness and with joy. So when you work with goals, it's really important with this positive formulation to make sure that it's exactly right, how you want to have it, and that you take enough time to formulate it so you don't get into any traps where you're not going to get what you want. You've got to get something else. But might still have been run over. What do you mean by that, Willie? Any other questions as well? Just write them down. No, it would not have happened, Willie. I believe in the power of the universe. I believe that we program our life through our thoughts. So if he had really formulated the sentence differently, then he would not have had the accident. Okay? But having the thought of just saying one may come true, you need to. That's right, Stella. Work on it. Work on it. Always have to explain, but don't allow wills and wants to conquer. It's really creation of each of us. Okay, come back again, Sandra. Wills and wants conquer. It's really a creation of each of us. I believe in self-responsibility. I don't know whether it's an answer to what you wrote there, Jose, Luis. Self-responsibility, that means whatever we get in life, it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to put in enough energy and passion and time in our lives to get what we want. And nobody can take that away from us. It's up to you. And depending on how much work you put into that, how much power and how much time, then the bigger the chance that you will get it. What do you do if what you want doesn't happen or happen exactly as you want? And what do you do if what you want doesn't happen or happen exactly as you want? I think I know what you're trying to say, Stella, is that you have some kind of goal or something that you want to happen in your life, and it doesn't happen exactly how you want it. It happens differently. This is okay. The presupposition or the idea behind it is that what I think is very important in NLP is to go inside yourself. We are often oriented today in this day and age to be more oriented outside, influences from outside, whether it's TV or media or news or whatever, and other people as well that try to influence us positively or negatively. And here it's really important, or what I see an important NLP is to learn to go inside yourself. So now every process and everything that happens in your life should come from inside you. You are perfect. You have all the possibilities and all the strength and wisdom that you need to show that. It comes from you, from the middle. Because if you imagine, if all the influences that you have in life come from outside you, from people talking to you, discussing with you, arguing with you, from your boss, from your teachers, from your mother and father, or from your wife or from your husband, and you react to this influence from outside. You feel under pressure. At that moment when you feel under pressure, you tend to become angry or unhappy, and then you start trying to fight or defend yourself or argue or discuss. And I say what's really important, and maybe what you want is not, what's really important is to go inside yourself, find out what kind of person am I, what do I want in life, what are my goals, what are my dreams, what do I feel in my heart, and then to react to the outside world from inside. At that moment, the world becomes much bigger. Because your world or your perception of the world is coming from you, from inside you out. Any questions? Yeah, Angie, the book, The Secret, one of the things about The Secret, my critic on The Secret is that it's really important it's good to have these visions and to ask the universe to get whatever you want, but you have to look at the other side as well, to look at also what kind of things you have to change in your life. What are the challenges that you have to change? What are the negative thoughts behind that? And to work them out too. It's not a case of just believing I'm going to be perfect and I'm going to have a lot of money without working on your disillusions or on your feelings of not being good enough and changing the way you think and the way you react to people. I tend to mislead myself. Yeah, well, you should lead yourself in another way. Jose Luis, tend to mislead. Mislead is an interesting word. You're using the word lead, das führen, leading, and leading is really important. That means you can lead. It's just a case of you deciding in which direction do you want to lead yourself. On one side where you don't get what you want, or the other side where you get what you want. Yes, humans are very good at fooling themselves. That's right. Okay. Coming back to what I started with representation systems and communicating with each other, creating a deeper communication level to people. We call this in NLP rapport. Rapport, you can see, for example, when people put wallpaper on with a pattern, that the patterns have to be in rapport with each other. So in resonance or in balance. And this is what rapport is in communication. That means one idea what I already shared with you is using the same representational system. When you are normally kinesthetic, if you meet somebody visual, that you start talking in pictures too. You start going, letting yourself go into their representational system. You also take on similar posture. So if somebody's sitting, then you sit too. If somebody stand, you stand too. If somebody likes using their hands, you use your hands too. If somebody often looks up, then you look up as well. You use the same or similar words as a person you're talking to. You can even use the same breathing patterns. And what happens then is the depth of the communication becomes much more deeper. And this is what we call rapport. And of course, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, this is just a pure introduction. NLP, we have a training for NLP that goes over at least 22 days, over a year, because we believe that learning what NLP really is, it takes training, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy. But at the same time, what I'm giving you today is different kinds of impulses or thought pushes that you can take with you after the webinar and start using in your everyday life in contact with people. Just be curious, be passionate, and be courageous enough to do something new and interesting. And life is then not boring, and something very special might happen at the same time. So be courageous. Any questions? That's a good question. No idea. I don't know where NLP started with me. As I said before, my first experience with NLP, I was 16. But I think through when I learned NLP, I became much more conscious about relationships. Became much more conscious about how I react to people, how I communicate. I am more aware about what's going on around me. I feel more safe and secure in my environment. Yes, there's paintings. One of my paintings at the back that you can see, Angie. That's a fish. It's 2 meters big and 2 meters 2 meters long and 2 meters high. One of my paintings, yes. Stella, so I don't know whether it's an answer to your question. How would I compare my post-NLP to my pre-NLP self? Actually, I think it's not a very good question, but I don't know. Was that answer okay for you, or were you thinking of something else? Any more questions? So there are a lot of other NLP presuppositions or models or techniques, and as I said before, what I'm giving you now is an introduction to some things or some parts of NLP. I'm absorbing information and trying to put it together in my system. Can you be more specific with what you're trying to ask, Angie? Okay. Another thing that I would like to talk about is congruence and incongruence. Okay, that question is good because that works with my congruence and incongruence. Religious backgrounds. I have had some people who came from other backgrounds, for instance, Islamic student. One question at a time, please. I'm getting confused with so many questions. He was Islamic and came from Saudi Arabia. And I remember one situation, I was working with him and I'm very provocative. And he did something and I shouted at him. I don't remember what I said. I said, "What are you, stupid bastard? What are you doing here?" And just automatically my Australian way of working with people, very spontaneous. All of a sudden he just went white and pale and said, I'm leaving, I'm going back to Saudi Arabia. And I said, well, why, what did I do wrong? And he said, in his religion, Islam, shouting at somebody is the worst thing you could do. It's the worst insult you could ever give a person. And I said to him, well, this is my truth. This is how I work with people. This is another thing we have to work with each other, that you can accept that, and I will of course observe and I now know that this is something that you do not do to an Islam person, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to change completely. We have to work together to become resonant with each other. And we did that, and it worked out okay. We have to be very conscious about the different religions and different cultures that people have, but at the same time, I think it's a case, once again, of rapport, of resonance, of working together with each other to find a balance, as it is in everyday life as well, to find a balance with each other, to become resonant with each other. I almost muted, but yeah, right, manipulate. Yeah, well, that's a good question. My answer to this is yes, and there are a lot of people, NLP people, who I think they really do a lot of, they're dangerous. They tend to manipulate people maybe to get money or to get them to do courses or get them to buy something. This is not my idea of NLP. NLP, I manipulate people, yes. I manipulate people to learn how to get more out of their life, to how to enjoy more in their life, how to change their relationships, how to change the way of being or change the way to communicate. But at the same time, I would never manipulate somebody to go somewhere where they don't want to go. So the main work that I do is asking questions, people to find out exactly where they want to go, what they want to change in their lives. then I support them in manipulating themselves to achieve this goal. But that's a good question, Marika. This is often an NLP negative reaction that people, it's manipulative. It is. And this is actually how way we speak, communication is manipulative. We manipulate people every day. The question is, in what direction do we manipulate people? Ina, maybe in some kind of seminar, maybe we can meet each other and I could do some exercises with you. Maybe I will do one in a few minutes if we have some time. Any questions to this negative critique of NLP? I'm a very strong NLP critic, by the way. I criticize NLP all the time. I criticize NLP trainers. I criticize NLP therapists because there are some things in NLP where I can see, or where I think it's my own belief system, that is not right. That there's another way of using NLP more consciously, more lovingly, more coming from the heart, more coming from feeling. Business is good, yes. Business is good, using NLP in business. I sometimes work with businesses or with teams or with companies, and I work with them that they learn to show their feelings, show their emotions. This sometimes causes a lot of resistance, but also opens up a new field of teamwork. And there are some good NLP courses in business in Germany as well, but in other countries too. Client relationships are good. NLP is a great way to enhance your relationship to your clients because you get a more deeper form of rapport or communication. That's a big question, Catherine. EFT or the NLP, the difference, no idea. I think there are some synergy. There are some points that come together there, but EFT I think has a lot to do with touching, with different kinds of points that trigger emotions and feelings. EFT, there's a lot of information in Google about that, tapping. Yeah, that's right. In NLP, we use a lot of things. For example, NLP, I combine Chinese medicine, I combine kinesiology, I even combine Bach flower remedies into NLP because, as I said at the beginning, NLP is not a method. NLP is a model, or it's a combination of different thoughts, feelings, and presuppositions, and dreams as well, that have been formed into one house, if you want to call that, and we call that neuro-linguistic programming. Regina, can you tell me more what you're trying to tell me? I don't quite understand that. Because to follow your heart for me means to follow your feelings, to follow your inner voice, to follow your inner teacher. But by following your heart, then your dreams will follow you too. Is that an answer, Regina, or do you need more information? Okay, by the way, if you have any critique, even if it's negative or positive, there's a possibility at the end of the webinar to write your critique or give any kind of feedback that you want to give. Regina, I'm waiting for your answer. Anybody else have problems with the title, Follow Your Heart? Angie, from a distance, it sounds a little bit like Reiki or something else. Reiki is okay, and other forms of communicating with people. The Aborigines, well, I grew up with the Aborigines, and again, I'll come back to that later. They communicate telepathically with their thoughts. And I think there is a way that people are connected through their thoughts. But whether that's solely can be used with NLP, I have no idea. But I think it's as often you think of somebody, then they ring you up 5 minutes later. I'll try and answer your question, Regina. I don't know whether if I can hear in one. Oh, Angie, I'm sorry about that. Let me talk about that later. Follow your heart. NLP, some of the critique of NLP is that it teaches people to come away from their feelings. My work with NLP is to go back to your feelings, to go back to your heart, to understand what your heart is telling you. And I think the heart is our most important organ, not because it pumps blood through our body, but because it's the center of being able to show feelings, empathy to people, to be able to show and express love to people, to be near to people, to build up relationships. And this is one of the main aspects of why I work with NLP. And it is a little bit difficult to express that in a 1-hour webinar. You're right about that, Regina. I'm sorry, it's not a case of whether she wanted that or not, Angie. I mean, it did happen, and whatever happened around it, maybe there was other people involved who something happened positively, or I don't know. This is just one question that's really difficult to answer in a webinar. And I'm absolutely sure she did not want to be in a coma. Absolutely sure. Oh, thanks, Regina. Yeah, right. Follow your intuition, feelings. In a teacher, your angel, your inner angel. Trusting yourself, believing in yourself, believing in the power of you. And I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy to follow your heart, to be in contact with your feelings. But if there was any message, one of the most important messages that I give my students, my clients, and my patients is to learn to trust your feelings, and wherever you are, to have enough courage to show these feelings. Whoever is with you, even if you're alone. And by feelings, I'm not just talking about the negative feelings, the anger or sadness or hopelessness, but also joy and happiness. Also be able to show that as well in a heart-filled way. Yeah. Okay, Catherine, good. Yeah, we're getting close to the end now. Is there any questions anybody has, a really burning question that they would like to ask me? Yeah. Right, that's good. That's good. Thinking is always good, Renata. But the way you think is really important as well, to think of your goals, to think goal-orientated, to think positively, to use your mind to really get in contact with your feelings. Okay, Catherine, I hope it was good. Okay, I'm not quite finished. I have one short story at the end. I don't know whether you know this story from Ken Keyes. It's a story from the 60s or 70s. Ken Keyes wrote this story. It's a true story called The 100th Ape. And it's a story about an archipelago, a group of islands in Japan. And in this group of islands, there lived millions of apes, all different. There was about 100 islands, I think. And scientists wanted to experiment with these apes to see how intelligent they were. And they put a load of sweet potatoes onto the beach of all these islands where all these apes were. And the sweet potatoes were covered in sand and earth. and the apes could not eat these sweet potatoes. They were so dirty. And then they tried to, but they had problems with it. Then one day, one ape, it was a female ape, took one of these sweet apples up to the river and washed the sweet potato, and he ate it. And then she showed her brother how to wash a sweet potato and to eat it. And this is really great, you know. They showed the whole family, and this is really, they started eating sweet potatoes without earth, without sand. It was fantastic. They showed the next family of apes. Then after a while, more apes got to learn how to wash sweet potatoes and be able to eat them. Then one day, the 99th ape showed the 100th ape how to wash his sweet potato. And at this moment, this exact moment of time, there's over 1 million apes, and every island of this archipelago started washing their sweet potato in water. This is one thing that I believe, if enough people start becoming more conscious about what they think and what they feel and giving it to somebody else as a present that keeps going on, then this will be a way to change this world and make this world a better place to live in. So I do hope that I have moved you in this hour. It was difficult for me. It's my first webinar, one of my first webinar in English. I hope I did all right for you, and that you can take something back with you to use in your life. And maybe we will meet someday by another seminar or by a training or whatever. I can recommend the training, this 1 week NLP training in London, as well as the free email lessons that I worked on also together with Stefan Landsiedel. These 53 NLP lessons are very, very good to learn more about NLP. I hope you enjoyed my living room, and I hope that I have inflamed your passion for life and learning how to live your life more consciously with just one drop in the ocean. And thank you for listening to me. And it was great being with you. I was a little bit nervous, but I wish you all the best. And I just let you go and say goodbye to you with just one sentence: follow your heart, and your dreams will follow you. Thank you very much. Very great, Penny. That's great. Okay. Okay, thank you.